Today's episode is a bit different. Yes, we will dive into the cutting-edge development of CRISPR, a system that might be changing how we reprogram cells without touching the DNA, but this conversation is going beyond science. Nowadays, people start to back up everything with science. How do you feel about it?
I think there should be something like almost like a driver's license, just for citing papers online.
We are also taking a step back to reflect. What does it mean to communicate science honestly? Where's the line between outreach and oversimplification? And what role do we, the scientists, play in that ever-growing space between facts and feelings?
Even people really working as scientists in the aging field, they don't even find a conclusion what aging is. Or, for example, if aging is a disease. There was also a recent paper where they asked, I think 100 experts on the field. There's no conclusion.
My guest today is Tobias Schmidt, a PhD researcher at the Helmholtz Institute, working on CRISPR-based tools for cell engineering. He's not only shaping the future of biomedical science, he's also lifting weights, literally and intellectually, as a science communicator with his own YouTube channel. Before I begin, I want to say thank you. This podcast has grown because of your continuing support, your sharing, your subscription, and the recommendation to others who care about real and honest science. If you find it valuable, what I do, it would really mean the world to me if you hit that subscription button and share it with someone who really needs to hear this. So stay with us, because this episode is not just about the latest papers. It's about the responsibility behind research, the creativity behind communication, and maybe a few moments of honest reflection. Have fun and enjoy our conversation.
Daily dose of honest science.
Hello guys, and welcome back to Daily Dose of Honest Science. I'm your host, Dr. Chani Kumar, and you're here for the best biomedical science podcast that you can hear on any podcast. I'm a bit sorry, I'm a bit having a sore throat and feeling a bit sick, or am I sick? So I hope it's okay for you guys. In today's episode, we take a bit slower than usual, because I want to talk about a novel approach in CRISPR, but we also want to address some important topics which are bothering me and my guests for a longer time. My guest today is Tobias Schmidt, currently doing his PhD at the Helmholtz Institute, working on CRISPR-based tools and how these could be used to reprogram cells. And maybe you remember the exciting episode with Professor Stefan Stricker. Funny enough, it's his boss. So yeah, Tobias is not only a PhD student, he is also doing a lot of strength training for several years, as you will see in some minutes. And of course, he is a very passionate science communicator. So please, a big applause and a warm welcome to the show, Tobias Schmidt. Hello, Tobias.
Hello, thanks so much.
Now he missed that he needs to say something. Yeah. So it's your first time being on a podcast? Yeah, it's my
first time. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation. I'm happy to share some honest science and also to talk about some things which might not be directly related to science.
True. So let's start right away with the first section. Of course, I would like to know, before we dive into your very first author paper that you did, I want to know you a bit more. Of course, I know you a bit now. Funny enough, how we met. It's also kind of interesting. So first of all, Tobias, you had a bit of a different path to science. Maybe you want to share that with the audience. How did you got into science?
Yeah, I'm happy to share some. I mean, I basically grew up in a small village in the north of Munich. I had not had any connection to science. I mean, I'm not from an academic household. Basically, I just got interested in science when I tried to lose weight and started with sports, strength training, and then I wanted to improve my workouts, my loads, and I tried to start to read some studies. I got interested in how the body actually works, and this made me then led to the way to university in the end, or first to get to the degree to enter university in the end, and then I decided to study chemistry to learn more chemistry. Yeah. I started by studying chemistry.
So your bachelor's is in chemistry, and then the master's.
Master's was then biochemistry.
Biochemistry, okay. And now you're doing your PhD, but you were a bit older, as usual people. Do you want to share why?
Yeah, true. I'm a bit older, true. I forgot that part. I mean, first, exactly. First, I did a training, like a technical training in industry, basically as a car mechanic or car mechanics engineer. I worked there in industry, as I said, for almost 4 years, I guess. And then I went back to school and studied in the end. So.
But what was the rationale to do that? Was it like an interest that you had that you want to do first this car engineering stuff?
No, it was basically just because everybody else in the village also did that. So this was like the main path or the standard path that people took or take.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's...
So you were influenced by your environment to do that.
Yeah.
And then out of this curiosity during your time, you said, okay, I want to go back and study actually chemistry, biochemistry.
Yeah.
Okay, and you mentioned in the very beginning that you were obese in your childhood, right? I hope it's okay to mention. Yeah,
it's totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Because you also share it on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, first of all, how did this come? And when was the point where you said, I want to change this? And then how science actually helped you to change that?
Okay, let's start by the first question. How did it come? I mean, I think it's mainly, as we also know now, backed up by science, it's mainly driven by genetics and environment. I think the most part is, of course, genetics. It's sometimes hard to disentangle because, of course, you grow up with your family, so it could be both. But it was...
So would you say that is also something in your family, like a theme that's ongoing?
It is kind of ongoing, yeah. It's not that... actually, if I think about it, there's not so many people in my family who are really heavily obese, and I had a BMI of over 40 when I was 12.
Wow.
Basically, I always struggled, and also when I remember back then as a child, I basically had... My whole focus was on food, basically, honestly. I mean, that's where I think the most reward came from. Yeah.
Okay, so...
And the point where I really started thinking, okay, I want to change it was basically always, but it just never happened, you know. Also my parents, I mean, they also wanted to have a change. We tried several stuff like the regular diets, we went to the physicians and whatever. But it never really worked. But then at some point, I don't even remember when there was really the point where I thought, okay, from now on I will do it, but I just started from one day to the other. I had really the goal to lose basically as much weight as possible in a very short amount of time. And then I just did it. I mean, it wasn't the healthiest way. I would never suggest to anyone to do it like I did it, honestly. And nowadays I know better, you know, how to properly do it. But in the end, it worked out.
And how did strength training came into the play?
This was then basically... I would say almost afterwards, because the main weight I lost when I was 13, so between 13 and 14, and I subscribed to the gym when I was, I think, 15 or something. So I lost most of the weight already. But still, of course, I mean, there's still some... I mean, you still can see it on the body, right, when you lose a lot of weight. And I thought, okay, when I started strength training, I can get rid of this... signs, you know, that the skin which is remaining and everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
So but that was not very easy then.
Yeah.
So, And when was the point that you said I fall in love with strength training? So when you saw the first results, or?
Yeah, I think that's where it started basically. Because when I started, actually, I thought, you know, you will, or at least I will never achieve something in training or in strength training. And then at some point after years, I saw results, and then I just got addicted by this feeling, you know. Of course, in the beginning, it if I'm honest, mainly driven by improving the shape or how you look and
aesthetics.
Aesthetics, exactly. But now I would say it's a minority. I mean, now it's very different.
Now
it's about the training itself in the
training
end.
And you know what kind of health benefits you have in the end. And did you had a trainer back then, or is this everything that you have learned, like everything that you basically know now you just read on your own?
Yeah, most of the stuff I read on my own. I mean, of course, it was not. Also back then there was some sources which you could not trust as much as others. I mean, as you know, we already had YouTube back then. There was many YouTube fitness influencers. There was some, now when I look back, they still had good quality even. There was also others who was just talking bullshit as as nowadays in social media. But yeah, it was a mixture. I mean, I also always try to have a critical view about everything that people just claim or say on the internet, you know.
And how did science come into play when you wanted to progress in your physique?
Yeah, this came basically, I would say, a bit later because, as I said, I first did like a training, then I worked in industry, and back then it wasn't really backed up by science because I didn't even know so much about science. But then it started, like, I would say 4 or 5 years later when I was at university, where I really could read studies about some trials which they made, for example, for different exercises they did, and I don't know, then I saw differences in the outcome.
I'm just wondering because usually people who do a lot of strength training and the vast majority that you see online, they all have kind of some education in nutrition and exercise. But in your case, you really just read everything that is online or in books, and through the education that you had through chemistry and biochemistry, you figured out everything. Or do you have a extra qualification in that?
No, I don't have any extra qualification. I never had really a personal trainer or something. And I also, at this point, I wouldn't claim that I read everything, because that's also sometimes people claim that, and I think it's almost impossible.
Yeah, you cannot read millions.
Even if you're
studies.
an expert in your field, I mean, it's very hard to catch up with
completely
with all the
true.
science.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I never had any personal trainer or something.
And are you thinking maybe for the future to make like this personal trainer, what is it, certificate kind of thing, that you can also do that to help?
There was some points in my life where I thought about it, but now I think I will not do it. Also because it's just time consuming, and I think I don't know if I would be the person. I don't know now that if I would be the best person to really be a personal trainer for one specific person, you know. I don't know. Maybe I should try at some point.
I just imagine you at the gym shouting at the people and be like,
yeah, but that's not my personality. That's the problem, I think. That's how people imagine to be for a personal trainer, right? And that's just, I think, I would never shout at someone. I would always be okay. If it hurts, it's also enough if you do it tomorrow or something.
That is also something that I realized. The first time I met you, I was a bit intimidated, to be honest.
Okay.
But not in the bad sense. I was just very astonished by your physique. And afterwards, I realized you're so kind. You're so even very introverted, but you have, in my view, a really kind soul, and that is like the complete opposite that you would think of, right?
Okay.
So you would be like this tough guy, you know, and I have to really say that I really appreciate it. And also sometimes when we text, it's the way that you write the stuff and add emojis and so on, it's always like, that is Tobias, okay. So I really appreciate that, and that you have not changed over the time, because sometimes, you know, things happen in life and then you suddenly change your personality.
No, I hope this will never happen.
No, I hope so too, but I don't think that this will be the case. Okay, so you got.
Thanks for these kind words, by the way.
I got paid by him, so. So you got into science more into like the secondary part. It's not like very straightforward. But maybe you want to explain to the audience what your current role is, what you're doing, and how fulfilling is this role right now for you?
Do you mean my current role in academia, in science, basically?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm currently a PhD student at Helmholtz and LMU. A joint project. It's also financed by the EPI Cross Borders, which is a graduate school. It's very nice because it's, as I said, a joint program between University of LMU and University of Edinburgh. It's in Scotland, so this is quite nice. It's quite supportive. And my role is basically looking and developing an approach, as you also said in the introduction, for gene regulation, so based on CRISPR, yeah.
And how was the first time you heard about this PhD position? I guess Stefan just, wrote out the PhD position. And why did you think you wanted to go there?
No, actually, it was a bit different. I did not apply for a real position. I joined the lab first by doing an internship.
Yeah. True.
So I was basically looking for labs which do stuff what I was interested in. That's what I always did. Also during the studies already, I really tried to focus on stuff which I am interested in, and then did some internships or lab rotations or whatever. So I applied for an internship. Stefan said, "Okay, let's talk." He just called me, as he is, very direct. And then I came to meet the people, and they said, "Okay, yeah, we have this one project which people started to establish and never touched since like 2 or 3 years." And then I said, "Yeah, sounds cool. It's based on CRISPR. Let's do it."
But when you contacted Stefan for this internship, was it a choice that you made because you know that he was working on CRISPR, that you said, "I want to learn something in that field"?
Yes.
Okay.
So I really looked for. I mean, I think in the end it's even not super easy to find his group, especially if you're not studying biology or not on this campus. So which I was not. So I really had to look for it. I don't know. For me, it sounded super interesting. Not only about the CRISPR specific thing, but also in general about cell identity, how cell identity can be changed, how it's maintained, and also, especially really manipulating stuff. That's what we and Stefan does in his lab, and that what really, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I have to agree when I was talking to him that the way he thinks about how to reprogram cells in such a way that you can change its identity to another cell type, and we still don't really know why the cell has taken this path, and is there a way back that you can reintroduce it to another part, is super fascinating, because of course we talked also about potential applications later on if you have developed these tools that you can maybe treat more easily. In his case, he's working in neurons, that you can use that for treating maybe in future Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, right? And maybe reverse somehow what's going on there. So, Tobias, we were talking about your journey into science, but what I'm quite interested is you're quite early in your career. First of all, what would be maybe future goals that you would like to achieve? And what are other topics that you're very passionate about, or you like to read up in your free time?
You mean goals based on science and research, or in general?
Yeah, no, in general, like life goals and maybe also scientific goals, what you want to achieve. Yeah,
depends on how it goes. I think I just try to explore how far I get in science. I mean, I could imagine to also at some point start a group and do my own research. I don't know if I'm too old already at this point. Let's see.
I don't think so.
But yeah, on this point, on this side, I don't know. I just, as I said, try to get as far as I come, as I get, and besides the scientific part, I'm also very keen on doing a little bit of science communication, read up on other stuff, hot topics, because it affected me, like obesity, weight loss, all this nutritional advice that you get in social media and on the internet. Yes.
And besides that, is there any other topic that you're quite interested, or?
I wouldn't say so. No.
So it's more really personally, because there's a lot of things that people get wrong, or there's a lot of misinformation happening because people make it too easy. Okay.
Also about longevity, which is a big point, right? I mean, it's also
we might come to this as well.
Something which I'm into.
Of course, I tested there, and I hope it's okay to say, you have a little family, and I would like to know from you, because I don't have right now any family or any friend or boyfriend in that sense. How do you manage your personal life? Because it's amazing sometimes when I see online what you post, like getting up in the morning, going to gym, going then to work, and then, of course, taking care of your family. So what kind of hurdles do you have to overcome on the daily life basis to get everything working?
Yeah, many hurdles, I would say. No, I mean, the main hurdle of how I managed to do it is by sleep restriction, I would say. You just, I mean, in the end, you have to find a way to have enough time to work out, so I just try to sleep less. It's not the healthiest way, I know, but that's one aspect.
Sometimes only 5 hours or something, right?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
On average, I think it's less than 6 hours.
Wow, okay.
I mean, depends also how much you need, right? There's differences in people, but yeah. Yeah, of course, it's hard. I'm super lucky that my girlfriend, or the mother of our son, is doing a great job. I know in the end it's also still unbalanced, because in the end it's for sure not 50-50. As you also know, as a PhD student, you have a lot of responsibilities. There's in the end, most of the time, not even something like a weekend or some holidays, because the experiment, I mean, the cells they don't care if there's some
completely.
Some
But
bank
I
holiday.
think you really try to leave out the weekends as much as possible, so you have enough time for your family, right? So you make priorities in that sense. But is there, let's say, a certain limit that you would say it's important to have a certain limit? If someone is in the same situation, that you like give a little guidance in that sense, what would work for a person, or do you think it's completely individual?
I think it is super individual. I think there's no general guidance one can give, but I would always, I mean, it sounds super general, but I would always try to manage the priorities, right?
And how much does the strength training and the sports in general help you to manage that? So is it like a little, how do you say, like a little ventil that you have, that you can channel that?
I think it's a big one, actually.
Yeah.
I think no matter how tired I am when I get up to go to the gym, or how distracted I feel after the workout, it's always that I really have power. I'm motivated when I go to the lab, when I start stuff. I mean, this is very different to when I haven't been working out for a few days or weeks. So I think it really helps to also keep going and to structure.
And
the day.
Currently, how often do you try to get into the gym and do your program?
I try to manage to go 3 times a week for like between 90 minutes and 2 hours. So this would be on average 1 hour of workout per day, I would say.
And do you follow a specific program, or is this like something that you have assembled on yourself?
I have assembled on myself. I mean, I just, by trial and error, I think it's also something which I realized there's so many advices and so many tips and hacks and whatever on social media. But in the end, honestly, I think what really counts is that you do it consistently, you show up. Yes, you do it like 2-3 times a week, or as much time as you have. And in the end, it's about training the main parts of your body. I mean, of course, it always depends on your goals, right?
Yeah,
if you want to become Mr. Olympia or something, then it's a different story about also about supplements and nutrition and whatever. Yeah. Then you have to be on point. But if it's just about, I don't know, getting the workout done to feel good, then it's not.
So it's mainly for
important.
you staying healthy, being there, and what would you...
And punish myself, basically.
Yeah, punish yourself, of course. But do you have a specific goal that you want to reach with your current training? Or is it just, I want to build muscle mass, and maybe, I don't know, I can lift so and so many kilos? Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a bigger goal. I just try to get better and better and try to see where's your limit. Where's the limit? Yeah.
Okay, that's really cool. Maybe we touched actually all the stuff to know you a bit better. Maybe we just go directly to your YouTube channel. Which you have started now because you are also a science communicator. Do you want to say how we met?
Yeah.
How we actually... Okay, then tell the story. Because it's so funny.
As far as I remember is that I saw you on Instagram, right? And I just wrote you if you have a group.
Yeah, true.
At the BMC because I thought, I mean, I saw your channel. It was very nice and I thought it's very professional. So it must be from a group leader, right? Yeah.
Thank you very much for these very kind words. It was funny because then I saw your channel and I was like, oh, wow, he's doing CRISPR. Oh, that's cool. Then we can connect. And when we exchanged DMs, I figured out you were a PhD student, right? Yeah. And then the first time we met on the campus, it was really very astonishing for me. So I would have not expected that. And I was very positively surprised. So until then, we just start having regular conversations, right? So we try to also make content now together sometimes. And I do have to say, it was really good that we have met because now we can exchange. Because usually what people maybe don't know, especially when you do science communication and you're doing it alone, it can feel sometimes very daunting and very alone. And sometimes you're so frustrated because, I don't know, for whatever reason, the reel is not working or you put so much effort into the YouTube video and you don't know why. And it helps really, and I've seen that now with you, to talk about the problems that as a content creator you have, because of course you start, even though you should not do that, to compare yourself with others that are of course much bigger than you and have millions of followers, and you start to doubt yourself if you can do it or not. So I really appreciate that we can exchange on that, and it's also important that we have the same values, because sometimes you meet people who don't have the same values, and then there's like this constant problem that how do you get along?
Yeah, this would create some friction or something.
Yes. And so I do really appreciate that you are also trying to get the most honest view on everything that you do. And if you watch, so to the audience, if you go to his Instagram or YouTube, you would definitely find that. So if you watch his videos or watch his shorts, you would definitely find that he really wants to balance out the information, and he's always very keen on, I'm not saying any bullshit to you. And I really do appreciate that a lot. Because nowadays, and we will come to that later in the section, there are so many people out there who believe a certain narrative is the only thing that you should follow, and be very provocative and not taking all the variables into consideration. So I would like to know from you, how is it frustrating, because you're more in the let's say, German bubble. I'm more in the international bubble because I'm doing more English. You're doing more German content. How frustrating sometimes it is for you to to address these issues when someone else is just doing a really bad reel and gets, I don't know, 1 million of views, and you're like sitting there with hundreds of views, even though it has more value. So how do you...
Yeah, I totally feel what you say. I mean, it's sometimes it's super frustrating. That's also why I was super astonished when I found your account and when I saw your content also on YouTube, because it's very high quality. You put in so much effort and so much work.
Thank you so much.
I mean, this would deserve thousands and millions of followers for sure. And
I have not paid him. Guys, I have not paid him.
But it's just honest, you know,
yes,
this is about honesty.
It's about honesty.
And and the thing is, I'm astonished how you manage also from the beginning to put in so much effort without ever knowing if it would pay off, right? Because that's what it is in the beginning. So it's super frustrating.
Yeah.
And as you say, for some of them, like telling bullshit or something and you reach millions, in the end, if you think about it, we don't even know if they also started the same way, you know, if they also struggled for years, just trying.
Well, I don't think that we have our nitpickers that we always take. I'm not going to mention them here because I don't want to have any argument with these guys. But since YouTube and so there are people who can help you now to get quick following, grow your YouTube channel much quicker than it has been done in the past, because now people understand what an algorithm is, how it works, and how to cheat it at some point in that way. And of course, if you take only, and I had this discussion with Matthew in a previous episode, of course you could jump on the train of making the same content all over again that people are searching. And maybe in your case it even makes sense because people will always write into YouTube to find videos that explain a bit what's the science behind obesity or what's the science to lose weight. Because people are interested in knowing how the body works. But the problem is that many of these people, either be scientists even, who go out of their comfort zone and maybe in a complete different field, they are not very into it, or any medical professional, be it already medical professional or someone who is just being a medical student, sometimes they miss the nuance of these very different variables that you have to take into account. And I think you're doing a great job in reminding the people that it's not that easy. Just very recently you have published a great reel about how these, like Ozempic or Wegovy, might, in theory, help you a lot. But this, if you back up this with science, in the long run, it might not, be sustainable because you always need that. So a sustainable way how to do it is to really take care of what you eat. How do you exercise? How much you do, right? So the basics.
The boring basics.
Basics.
That's what people don't care about, This doesn't sell well. That's the problem.
Exactly. And I do see sometimes it's really daunting to have this saying all over again. And then, I don't know, 2 reels later, someone comes and be like, I have the new way how you can lose fat. And no one is going to tell you because that's a secret. And then already
Why
you
is
have...
no doctor telling you this? That's the intro, the hook.
Yeah. And it's really difficult to stand out. And because I have the feeling, to be very honest, in the beginning I was very naive. I thought if someone who has a doctor grade already and stands there and does the nuanced discussion, that this is the most credible work that you can deliver, that this will people will like.
No.
No.
Unfortunately not. No, it's the opposite. Almost.
Yeah, because I don't have a hook. I don't have something that is astonishing, or these kind of things. And I've learned this over the time that many things that on social media work have to do with or deal with how you grab the attention of the person, and maybe also tell them how to interact with the video, and then later on you get your, I don't know, like or views or whatever. So in your case, I would like to know, you're quite in the beginning of your science communication journey, but do you see differences when you experiment with your, I don't know, hooks or whatever? What kind of type of content do you think is growing good in your case? Or which one where you say that's so sad that it didn't perform so well, even though it was good? So do you have examples to share?
It's tricky to distinguish, because when you say like, even though you thought it was good, it's just your own impression that it's good, but in the end, of course, it was not good for the audience.
No.
I think, of course there's differences. If you jump on the hot topics, if you have a hook like, I don't know, 7 tips that help you lose body weight from today to tomorrow or something, it would be, you would get more reach, I think. Then if you just talk about some facts about the paper which got published yesterday about, I don't know, that the main things that help you for longevity is basic nutrition. Things that we know since 30 years. Yeah. Of course, you don't reach many people with it, because they don't want to hear about facts. They want to hear about fictions and about stories. And I think that's super frustrating. And that's really also for real science communication, for honest science communication, is one of the biggest challenges.
And do you have maybe figured out a way for yourself that you can say, I can still be on the honest science, but still be reachable for the people? Do you?
Not yet. I'm still at the beginning, honestly. I'm still experimenting. Yeah. I think that's really, really challenging.
And what are the boundaries that you have set for yourself not to cross when you want to talk about a specific topic?
What do you mean by boundaries?
In my case, I would...
Not talking about bullshit or not bullshitting or something.
Yeah, or take... So for me, for instance, for now I have set the boundaries. I will never react to people. It's something that... So at least on social media, so like Instagram or something, if someone talks shit, that you take this as a hook and tell the people the honest science about it. So my philosophy is, I don't want to give the people my platform to spend again shit on that and then explaining people that this what he or she said is not true. So that's somehow where I see my boundaries. I rather tell I have seen or I have heard, this is the claim, and then I would explain it, but not show the person again and giving them the reach in a different way. So do you have some similar things, or do you say, no, for me that's completely okay because I need to tell the people that this is an idiot? Or
I have mixed feelings about this. I mean, I also think about it. I also made some reaction videos. I mean, you also can do reaction videos in a positive way, right? You can just take some examples and saying like, oh, this is great, what this person does, or what message she or he delivered. But I would think depends on if you want to do it or not, you know. It's just, again, it's easier to reach people with reactions, I think, because that's what people want to see. They always want to see or to hear in which camp you are in, you know, in the end.
Yeah.
This is most of the time,
it's
for
black
everything,
and white.
It's maybe in science, and really in some hardcore academic science, or in social media bubbles, it's always about two camps. Yeah, one fighting against the other. True.
There's no grayscale, right? No. Like the truth is somehow in between. Yeah. And people are not taking the effort to do this grayscaling, I guess, because it's easier to stay in one camp or the other camp and just fighting with each other, I guess. I think there are several camps, either be on the nutritional side or diet side or whatever, which is not really sometimes even science-backed. Truly agree.
I mean, on social media, just to add, I mean, I think sometimes it's important to react to people. Otherwise, I mean, if there's people only talking bullshit, at some point you have to make clear that it's bullshit, you know.
Yeah, I'm
How
still,
do you argue otherwise?
Yeah, I'm still debating with myself a bit about it, because I don't want to give them my platform. That's it. You know, I don't like to tell the people there is someone who is not good in that sense or talking shit, because it will not help anyone to be aggressive in some sense, or making it seem that this person did just one real not okay, but all the others are okay. You know, like these kind of...
Yeah, then there's no reason to react, sure.
Yeah, so it's a bit tricky. And I do see that there's also a difference between if a medical professional would react and the scientist. And just yesterday, I heard about a podcast episode of Dr. Mike talking with two other. So there was a scientist and a rheumatologist, I guess she was. And that was like this classical science versus medicine. It was not science with medicine, you know, like, and that's why Daily Dose of Honest Science stands also to unite these two big topics, or these big two fields together again, because I think over the past many years, both became very separate, and interacting with each other is quite low. The interaction between both is quite low, and I think from a medical perspective, but also from a scientific perspective, people can learn a lot. And that's why I'm trying to reach out to a lot of also medical professionals to have them on the podcast, and just to also have a bit more the nuance of this field. And I think that has been lost in this one specific episode. But this is my personal opinion on that. Maybe that would be my first YouTube reaction if I would make something. I'm still thinking about it. So maybe if this podcast comes out and I'm doing it, then you already know I did it.
But then in the end, if it's just one outlier, right? If you say, as you say,
no, there were too many outliers.
Okay.
Also, the way the scientists represented was also not the way I would have done it. But this is, you know, personal choice. Everyone is different. So maybe, you know, I know her, that's her style. She is like that. But it's not her show. It's the show of Dr. Mike. So I would have appreciated a bit more nuance, a bit more.
You mean from her side?
Yeah.
But why? I mean, in the end, she's the guest, right? Why does she need to stick to the...
Well, the problem is you didn't see it. So I had the feeling she was not representing the scientist in the best way. That was my personal feeling.
Okay.
I would have done it a bit differently, but I know I'm not that tough enough like she is. So she has a lot of experience already how to deal with these people who are in these pseudosciences going direction. And they're very, you know, straightforward. And I had the feeling that the other guest was intimidated by her at some point. But also, it was not really well... balance the discussion that they had in the end, and that's my personal opinion. Maybe someone else who has watched it might want to say something different, but we are getting lost into this one topic.
Looking forward to your first reaction video.
It will be a lot of research that I have to do, but I think I might want to do it. Just, I don't know why, but if you would be the host and you have two opposite sides. Of course, Dr. Mike really tried his best to give both sides the same kind of speech. But I do have to say it was really not one-sided at all. It was more like, in the end, what I took away from this whole podcast episode, which was over 2 hours, it was just that two women were arguing about a topic. It's not that I took away an information. It was really like something that I would never expect from his side, because usually.
But how do you manage as a host to lead a conversation between two opposing?
It is difficult, but he managed it before with another one. So he had one. Stephen Gundry is one, and he had a cardio specialist as well, and then they were debating. But he knew about the topic, but this time it was about chemicals, and I think it was a bit out of his scope maybe, or he was not prepared well enough. I have no idea how this goes behind the scenes. I have no idea. But, and it's totally, I'm not criticizing here anything in that sense. Yeah. It's just my personal view. I don't know if this would anyone want to hear or not. I have no idea. But I had the feeling that he could have done it better. And especially when it comes to facts. So he introduced some episodes before this little ringing that people can look up in his description, like an extra fact check video that he made for that specific thing. And I would have expected from him to do this exactly, to get the claims that both are just right now talking about it, and telling, okay, so this is the references and here are the references, and I see it like this kind of gray area. What we can maybe agree on is etc., etc., etc. And that was not done at all. And I think the whole conversation got lost in that sense. So the whole topic about it seems to be a very heated discussion in America. I don't think so that we have this kind of discussion here in Europe. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not in the right bubble. I have no idea. But it was not, in my view, not enough information for the normal viewer who is not an expert in chemistry or biology or whatever, to take away what they can do now. The only takeaway that I had is two people who are arguing a lot, and there's no consensus whatsoever.
And in the end, everybody takes the things which they want to hear.
That's
I
also.
think it's anyway tricky to. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if any of these discussions help anyone.
Yeah.
Because I have the feeling most of the time people anyway only listen to discussions from people which they know already, what they want to hear, then they take out what they want to hear, and they just try to defend the person they like in the end.
And also maybe stay not very open-minded to the other side and be, okay, what are their arguments? Are they good arguments, maybe that they can back up with good literature in that sense? And I completely agree. There are sometimes even I was, just very shortly, they were talking about glyphosate. And we had this discussion here in Europe as well. And the EFSA released now the statement that it's not cancerous and it's not damaging your DNA, right? So that's the state. But I know back then, many years before, we had these kind of little movies or little documentations in the German TV where they were talking about that it could be cancer related, so it could cause cancer or does something. So now, of course, we have these risk assessments to get to know at which dosage it gets to that point, and if you're not exposed to it, then nothing can happen. And I don't know, but the American people take this very serious. If it's, I don't know, only detected, even though it's under the threshold, they're still freaking out. And I'm not sure why this is the problem. Maybe I'm getting the conversation wrong. I have no idea. But you get a sense of, if you want to communicate science, you have to be aware what is your audience. At least what I have realized. So the German bubble, of course, is different to the international bubble, because topics might not be so important in the German bubble, but in the international, and vice versa. So maybe that is also something that we need to take into consideration when we talk about science, that maybe someone will misunderstand it and take this to promote something different, exactly. But I would like to know from you, before we hop on to your first author paper, how long do you take to make these YouTube videos, and how long is like the research time that you take to make this? Because of course you also list the references that you're talking about. So how long do you usually have preparation?
So far I have only 2 kind of short YouTube videos. So
yeah, but you also prepare shorter reels, right?
I mean, the research is most of the time not too time consuming, because it's mainly, or most of the citations I know anyway. I read them a million times and again. I think the most time consuming part about everything science communication online is about how to deliver it, like the editing and the upload and everything. I think that's even more time consuming than the research, honestly.
And how much creativity do you add to your science communication videos? Do you script it? Do you do it like in a one shot? Do you also have like inspirations from others?
It's very mixed, I would say. Sometimes I put much effort into it with, I don't know, cutting and transitions and whatever, and effects. And sometimes I just take the camera, if it's spontaneous, if I come up with a video, or if with an idea, then I just shot it, and then I try to upload it as fast as possible.
Okay. So you were up to date on the topic that is right now hot shit, no?
Sometimes, yes.
Sometimes, exactly. And maybe as a last question, do you see differences when you upload it onto specific social media platforms? So did you try out to upload certain reels to shorts, etc., etc.? Do you see different outcomes?
I can't really make the comparison, because I just started YouTube, and also I'm not so big that I can even make some differences clear, I think. I think it's hard, because it's mainly dependent on the algorithm, as you said also. I don't think there's any... Sometimes I think there's not any logic or any rule behind it, You just have to be on the right time with the right topic and have the right hook.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. But you're not thinking about making extra content only for Instagram and only for YouTube. So you're trying to...
No.
Okay.
Just because I don't have the time. I also,
exactly.
I think, for the long run, if I really wanted to do it seriously, I would have to decide for one of both. I don't know how people manage. I also don't know how you manage. It's also, if you have also if you have Blue Sky, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, how do you manage even to comment everything on every platform, upload and stay updated? It's,
to be fair, so Blue Sky, I'm there, but I'm not very active. Where I'm very active is LinkedIn, because there I got all the interesting papers that I want to read, or maybe are interesting to read, and also the most of the time maybe also getting people that are interesting for getting on the podcast. Then of course Instagram, just because of the because I have the most following there, and also So not the most is on LinkedIn, but then on second most is Instagram. And TikTok, I'm trying to, but to be very honest, I have no idea. It's so different. And YouTube, of course, I take care of YouTube because I want to grow on YouTube, of course, more, because I think this platform is the most rewarding one to you, because you build up a community that really cares what you upload and where people really like to listen to your conversations and give you maybe some feedback. Whereas on Instagram, it's a bit more like, nice that you did this reel. Okay, now I'm scrolling the next one. And Blue Sky, it's more like very mostly professional in some point, I would say, because a lot of people from X actually got on Blue Sky. Yeah. So it's more the academic people. And LinkedIn is a good mixture of both. So the cool thing is, I was very afraid because I saw LinkedIn as the job offer platform. So you should not add something to your LinkedIn account or as a post that would reveal something about your science communication stuff. That was completely bullshit from my side, because people like what I do, and I'm really appreciating it that many people are like, oh, that's cool, it's a new intro, I'm gonna have to look what this episode is about. So the community there is very open-minded, and the academics there are actually interested in videos, in information on podcast, to actually get to know each other and learn new fields and so on. So it's really, really cool. So that's how I manage it. But it's not like that I'm active all the time. So sometimes I just once in a week maybe do Blue Sky just to check. And YouTube I do check nearly every day, just to see how shorts or something is performing, or the video performed. Instagram, of course, also every day, because when you upload something or some friends upload something, then of course I want to push it out by leaving a like and a comment. And LinkedIn is also more like resharing good articles and maybe commenting on some of them. And when I have something to give out, then this is also just shortly before I post the video. So it's not really like that. Yeah. Okay. Then we go to your first author paper. Congratulations, Tobias.
Thank you so much.
Your boss was a bit afraid to talk about it when he was here.
Yeah, because it wasn't finally published yet.
It was in review, yes. But finally we can talk about it. And it's called Efficient DNA and Virus-Free Engineering of Cellular Transcriptomic States Using DCAS9 Ribonucleoprotein Complexes. For the audience, we're going to break it down. Don't worry, so don't just zap away. I made a little summary of the few introductory points that you had, and maybe you can explain a bit what's the idea behind of your paper or the things that you figure out. So, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Exactly. So the CRISPR-Cas and CRISPR advances. So there's already the first question that I have. What's the difference? So the CRISPR-Cas system, particularly CRISPR activation using DCAS9 VPR, have enabled precise gene activation without altering DNA, offering valuable tools for gene function studies and therapeutic applications. Then challenges in current CRISPR-A methods, despite the promises, often shows lower gene activation than cDNA overexpression, struggles with multiplex targeting, has low temporal resolution, and faces delivery difficulties due to large size of the DCAS fusion proteins. Then RNP-based CRISPR-A development, a new ribonucleoprotein-based CRISPR-A system using purified DCAS dCas9 VPR in guided RNAs was developed to overcome delivery and expression limitation in human stem cell and primary cells. And then, of course, high efficiency in multiplexing. So these showed strong gene activation, in this case 105-fold, rapid and transient expression and successful multiplex activation of 11 transcription factors, and potential for sulfate engineering. Enhanced systems demonstrate the ability to induce sulfate changes in human stem and differentiated cells, highlighting its potential for regenerative medicine and functional genomics. Before we go into this, I just want to go with you step by step that people understand what you actually did. Yeah. So the CRISPR system that everyone knows is the one that can, that is the active part, right? And the active part usually goes to the DNA, makes a cut in there, and then usually cuts out the gene that is not required anymore by giving so-called guide RNAs to tell the Cas9, hey, you should go to gene X, and I want that you turn off gene X by cutting it out, for instance. So now in your case, there's this so have enabled precise gene activation without altering DNA is the one that guides the Cas9 there and does not cut anymore,
exactly.
Right? So you have like this mutated version where the active component is dead in some case.
Yeah. Or you just have basically 2 point mutations in this protein. So Cas9, the nucleus is just a protein. And these 2 catalytic domains are mutated.
Okay. And it says that these have lower gene activation than cDNA overexpression and struggles with multiplex targeting, low temporal resolution, and faces delivery difficulties due to the large size of the protein. So usually how CRISPR works is that you actually have it on a so-called vector, right? So it's a DNA piece where the information to make CRISPR is on this vector, and that you introduce into the cells, and the cells make CRISPR on its own, right?
Exactly. This depends on the choice of delivery that you have. You have to find a way to get the CRISPR system into the cell.
And the problem that you had is oftentimes that when you want to deliver it, most cells don't take it up because for whatever reason the vector is too big, doesn't get into the cell. The cell doesn't produce it as it should be for whatever reason. So there are technical limitations why sometimes the efficiency is not there. And what you did now is that you said, okay, we don't need all these cDNA and blah, blah, blah. We just take the ready protein that it is. So we produce it externally in insect cells in that case, right? Purify it and then introduce it back to the cells. And then they do the gene activation or turning off, right? So my question is, how did this come in? So where was the idea out? So
yeah, that's the point where I have to acknowledge the people in my lab, because that's not my idea. They already established this. So they, at some point, a PhD student and some others in the lab had the idea, which was before my time, that one could also use the CRISPR or the dCas9, the dead Cas9 in this case, as a protein, because as we all know, mRNA-based deliveries are established also in the course of COVID and everything. Yeah. So there's different ways of delivering protein, and other people tried already with RNA, and then they thought, yeah, let's try the protein. Maybe we can purify it and see if we can deliver it and if it does something in the cells.
And the delivery system in of this whole complex, do you know how big it is?
You
the
mean
whole assembled complex?
Yeah, I mean, it's 220 kilodalton.
So it's huge.
So it's huge.
It's huge. The question is, how did you manage to get this inside?
We did by just liposuction, so we use cationic lipids and do a transfection.
And that really goes...
Yes.
Wow.
That goes through, yeah.
Wow.
I think it is even smaller than a plasmid. If you would have a DNA plasmid, a vector, I think it would be bigger.
Okay. And what was like the transfection efficiency? So for all the people who are not so into cell culture and in general biological assays, so usually if you want to bring something into the cell, you can make like a little reporter, like people know, like GFP, then it glows like green. And then you can assess how well has been done, because you can assess how many cells have this little green signal. And in your case, how efficient was this bringing in your case?
Very efficient from the very beginning.
Okay.
Also in different human cell types, we had almost 100%. So I would say every cell that was in the dish got or took at least some of this protein or of this ribonucleoprotein complexes took it up. That's
and
also one of the huge advantages, as you also said, because when you think about delivery, you have to find a system. You can use viruses. Where you have the problem that you cannot package the whole system into the vector in most cases.
Yeah.
Then for DNA delivery, for plasmids or something, it works nicely in some established cell lines, like some cancer cells, HeLa, HEX, and whatever. But when it really comes to primary cells, like we also used some induced pluripotent stem cells or some primary fibroblasts, then you really have a hard time to transfect DNA.
Okay.
So
that's not so easy then
no.
To do. And I wrote here down that it showed strong gene activation up to 105-fold. So you're going to explain.
I think this must be 10 to the power of 5.
Oh, sorry.
This should be 100, but it doesn't really mean something to anyone who's not in the topic, I think.
Genau, and rapid and transient expression and successful multiplexing. So these are, again, very specific terms.
Yeah.
So when we want to break it down, it means that this protein that you made of the CRISPR, right? So you have the protein in the tube and you introduce it to the cell. Now you're capable of rapidly turning on or off, very transiently, the expression of certain genes. And multiplexing means that usually the CRISPR needs the so-called guide RNA to actually know where it should go, right? And multiplexing in that sense means you can introduce now, in this case it was 22, is this true? Yeah, 22 different guides. You can tell the CRISPR, hey, to go, I don't know, to 22 different places.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And it says also without losing efficiency.
Yeah.
Efficacy, sorry. So my question is, how... So is then every molecule taking another guide RNA, or how do you do this multiplexing?
Yeah, you basically assemble different complexes for the different targets you have.
Okay.
So if you want to
target... So would you have 22 different tubes?
Yes, from the start, yes, you would have 22 different tubes.
So it's not like you have one tube with 22 guides and this protein? No.
As far as we know, no. You have to have 22 different tubes from the beginning, at least, when you have the separate the separate guide RNAs to assemble with the protein.
So it would be 22 different Petri dishes where you activate...
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
You would just at the beginning to assemble, because it's a 2-component system, right?
Yeah.
You have the guide RNA and the protein.
Yeah.
So you would need to pre-assemble guide RNA and protein for every 22 different targets. And then in the end, you can put it into one dish. All these 22, you mix them, put it into one dish to activate all of these 22 sites
now
at the same time.
Okay. Yeah. That's very interesting. And you were testing this with the activation of different transcription factors, right? And this overall system could be used in the end to change the cell fate of the cells. So you said already people in your lab started with this, previous PhDs and previous people. genau. I wanted to know from you, in the paper, it looks, when you look the figure panels, it looks very straightforward. You did this, and this. But I want to know, and you should spill the tea, how is it actually really behind this project? How was it behind the scenes in the project? Was it really so straightforward, or do you want to maybe?
Yeah, of course it was. We made figure 1, then figure 2, 3, 4, 5.
If you had failed experiments or was something frustrating that didn't work, and then
of course, there's always something was always frustrating. Some things that didn't work out in the end. Of course, you always want to do more. Also along this line, it's super funny because a few days ago I saw also, I think it was a post somewhere from a Nature Biotech paper where it's about also honesty in science, and then there was a figure showing like what the usual path of a hypothesis is, right? That you just start by a hypothesis and then you go down the path. How it also looks in the paper, but then how it actually is, that you start by a hypothesis, you have different branches, which you all follow up.
Yes.
And in the end, when you publish the paper, you just have one path of this whole branches.
True. Yeah.
And that's how it mainly is, right? And that's also, I think, one part, or at least it plays a role in the whole reproductivity crisis, which might be there in science. No, but I think in this case we were quite lucky. It was really quite straightforward for most of the
And how
experiments.
much of these experimental designs did you on your own?
I think many of them for the stuff that we showed in the paper, because also that's one advantage I have and we have, or for some maybe it's a disadvantage in Stefan's lab, that we are very free in what we do. We can just try things out, and if something works out, we just continue, we explore, and then
write up the paper.
We wrap it up, and then we write the paper.
Maybe how can someone imagine, as not a scientist, how the work behind the scenes have been? Maybe that you could elaborate very quickly on that.
Yeah.
So how can someone imagine, how was it behind the scenes?
Behind the scenes, it was just I got the protein, and then it was like, try if it works, especially also in human cells. And then I started working on it. I saw, it's, as we said, it is delivered efficiently. And then we saw, we can also activate some genes. And then this took already some weeks. I got to know what other people in the lab do, which systems we have in the whole department, which questions people have. And then I just started to try out things, right? I read papers also, for example, about CRISPR, what did they show? And then, for example, I saw, when they combine different guides for the same gene, then you can activate it more. Does it also work in our hands? And then we saw that, and then what could we apply it to for the differentiation? We can maybe differentiate cells from human stem cells into neurons, and also use it for direct reprogramming. So it was basically a mixture of exploring what the system is capable of, then looking at the literature, what is known, and what potential or which techniques do we have in the lab.
Okay. Because I wrote down some of the most interesting parts or key findings. So, of course, one breakthrough, let's say, is that it's the protein that you're using, right? So this have not been done before, or in that extent not before. So therefore, you expressed and purified this second generation of CRISPR, and in this case, as I said, in insect cells, and therefore it says overcoming previous purification challenges in bacteria. So there is already work where people started to use the protein itself, but they expressed it in bacteria, and that was not very efficient. Or how can I imagine this?
Yeah, I mean, there's a previous paper from 2021 where they purified also a CRISPR activator protein. It was just, I mean, in our case, to get specific, it's DCAS9-VPR, and they use DCAS9-VP64, which is just the V from the VPR part, so it's smaller and it's not as potent as the one we used. And they also tried to purify the same one as we use here, because but they failed to do so in E. coli. Yeah.
And then your idea was, okay, we try the next step in insect cells, because usually there's the way that you do bacteria, fungi, also people do sometimes to recombinantly express things. Then, of course, insect cells. And then if nothing works, then you go into the mammalian system where you try to get it from there, which is a pain.
Yeah.
But you were lucky that you got the insect stuff working, which is mostly when you want to work with mammalian complexes, you usually get most of it in insect cells. Okay. Then, in your case, efficient and versatile gene activation. So the complex worked very effectively, you said. And in various human cell lines you tested, or human cells, sorry. Also in primary cells and stem cells derived models. I just wanted to know, how did you do induced pluripotent stem cells? So these are not patient samples that have been reprogrammed.
They are not from patients, but from humans.
Yeah.
I think it's skin biopsies they take, and then they are reprogrammed into iPS cells. This is, in our case, it was done by the Helmholtz stem cell core facility. So we get them. We don't.
So you don't reprogram this on yourself. You just get the cells and then you do. And it was a rapid and strong gene induction, even in typically silenced genes. So how can we imagine this? So what did you do?
We basically chose, as you said, transcription factors, which are mainly, or which played a main role in specifying cell types when
maybe for the audience, what is transcription factor? Maybe very short.
I mean, a transcription factor is, I would explain it in simple terms, like a switch. When you have, like, as life starts with one cell, with a zygote more or less, then these transcription factors get turned on, specific transcription factors, and then the body or the cells develop into different cell types by activating, or by different transcription factors being activated, functioning as like a switch to commit to different cell identities.
So
that's how we imagine it.
Transcription factors are like these little proteins in our cell that have the ability to bind to the DNA, right, to the elements where they should bind, and then, as you said, can activate or even repress, which means turn off certain genes. And that's important for our development. Otherwise, if you would have one gene all the time constantly on, it would be bad, because then how would you develop, I don't know, your skin or the heart or whatever. Exactly. And then very interestingly is the precision and the biological relevance, because you were able to guide them exactly to that gene that should be turned off or on. And they were the time-sensitive gene regulatory processes and epigenetic memory without genetic modification. So it means you guided the Cas9 with a specific guide RNA to, I don't know, gene XYZ, and said it should be turned on now. And what was the time span that it was turned on?
It was very fast. I mean, we also quantified that after 3 hours, we saw already upregulation or turning these genes on for the ones we looked at.
How did you turn it on? Like, so it was binding to the element, so to this DNA piece. And how did you check that this gene has been turned on? Is there something like, is the cell maybe glowing?
No, we measure the RNA. As maybe people know, the central dogma of biology, the genes are encoded in the DNA, which is basically the storage of the information. But to actually do something, we need to first transcribe it into the message, the messenger RNA, and then from the messenger RNA into the protein. So we measured, in this case, the mRNA level, so the RNA.
Okay, so you measured when a gene is transcribed, as you said, the mRNA is made, and if it's turned on, of course, you would have more mRNA. Yeah. And what kind of specific technique did you use there?
RT-qPCR, as it's called. So you do a quantitative measurement, a quantitative PCR, which you
polymerase
take
chain reaction.
You take the RNA, convert it into DNA, and then you can quantify it.
Exactly. Okay, cool. So, and that was basically the main output that you had, that you always do a qPCR to check what's the mRNA level after treatment, and see how long does this signal persist. And what was the longest time that you still saw an elevated gene activation?
It was about a week. So
really?
Yeah. I mean,
so the whole complex transfected into a cell survived over a week?
No. I mean, this we don't know at this point. At this point, no, we don't know. It's very transient. I think the protein would degrade very fast, or at least be diluted, because cells divide and they throw the stuff out. So we measured basically the downstream effect, right? It could just be that you still have some maybe endogenous activation of the locus, and then you get some more RNA for longer, or the RNA is just stable for a week.
Okay.
For some of them. I mean, it's not as high as at the beginning.
Okay. And the cool thing is the multiplexing capacity now that you have, because I think you expanded it now, because before that it was not possible to have so many guide RNAs in the system to turn on so many transcription factors at the same time. Now,
it was. I think there was also almost a heated discussion with the reviewers, because we really almost made the point. Okay, we exceeded the limits and everything, but there's some people which show that they can also activate multiple genes in some cases.
Okay, so that was a bit.
It's in the same ballpark, so we did not expand it highly. I mean, now we have some new data. It's not published. We can even use more than 30 and maybe also even 40 or something. So this is very preliminary.
Do you know what was the highest rate that someone ever published?
I think 24 genes or something, or at least 24 guides. For some papers I saw it's not even clear. So they mentioned for one gene we used 2 to 3, so you don't know the exact number in the end about how many guide RNAs they use, so it's not very clear. But
so for targeting a gene you need these guide RNAs, and now you mentioned like you need 2 to 3. Do you can explain why this is the case? Why do you need more?
Yeah, for some genes you need more, either because one of them is just not specific or efficient enough, and for others it might be the case that you just need to increase the coverage of the site you target, meaning that you have a bigger region where you reach with the protein actually to really turn the gene on. Maybe because it's silenced, so maybe the 3D structure of the chromatin is just not accessible. That's something we really try to figure out also.
And would you say in the cell the protein does not exist always as one copy? It might exist as a so-called isoform or as a spliced version. So do you think that would be possible to target this in the future, or do you have tested this, that you only want to have certain isoforms being expressed?
I think it's difficult because they would have maybe the same promoter, right? You cannot distinguish. How would you control for targeting a specific isoform for splicing? I mean, you cannot control the splicing.
So for the audience, usually when you make the mRNA after it has been transcribed, this mRNA is not really active. It needs to be trimmed. And this trimming is called splicing, where parts are being taken out, so you have in the end the real messenger RNA that is then later translated into protein by the ribosome. And what I wanted to know from you is, so you only looked at the transcriptome level, which means you only checked the mRNA levels if they're elevated or not. But we do see in the paper also some really nice microscopic data. So do you know if the protein that resulted later on out of this elevation or this activation, could you also show that this is like also physically there, like being translated?
No, in this to be very short, No, we did not show it. We did not show it directly, so we did not show the protein level of these transcription factors because for us it was just hard to get the stainings. Apparently, staining for transcription factors, at least in our hands, was hard. But what we stained for was cell type specific markers, like for neurons. So we are pretty sure that we have some functional protein, because you would assume if you turn on a transcription factor on the RNA level, you would get some protein which actually leads to the biological effect you see, which we did, like the differentiation of stem cells into neurons. That was our point of proving, okay, we also get some protein levels, not only RNA, because...
So by looking at the markers that are very specific later on for this cell type that you would not find before because it was a stem cell, that you were sure that it worked because the protein had to be translated at some point, because otherwise how will the cell start to be differentiating? Okay. But I would have been very interested in the protein levels itself, because would that relate into higher levels of protein being expressed? Would it change the overall mechanism in the cell of specific pathways that kicks off the whole differentiation? It's not specifically only to activate this transcription factor, but also downstream effects would have been really interesting to know. But maybe you might follow up on this more on the proteomic side. And I like to always highlight the limitations, of course, because not every experiment or every paper is perfect. So while the in vivo delivery remains challenging, people are, have these viral vectors which work apparently a bit better, right? They hold strong promise for ex vivo therapies, enabling mutation-free and virus-free gene modulation in patient-derived cells. So I would like to know from you, what do you think is the technology heading in? So you have established this kind of within the group now. So what do you think is now possible with this new tool to investigate or even make therapies out of it? What would be the imagination that you have?
Yeah, I mean, for the scientific part or for just investigation for the future would be to see some very rapid and early changes by manipulating gene expression, for example, on the chromatin basis. How does it change? When does it change? What changes first, like the 3D structure or the gene expression? And for the application, I think it could be an approach also maybe in the clinic for gene therapy, which is not based on DNA, not on viruses, which does not need to integrate into the genome, and for cases which are transient.
Do you see a difficulty also delivering it to an organ, actually, to really specific to an organ? Because right now we could imagine you tested everything on a petri dish. It's not really three-dimensional, it's more like 2D. So would it make sense to test this maybe on organoids, which is like right now coming, or maybe on even animals?
I think that's where you hit the nerve actually from the method, because we haven't shown yet that it can be delivered specifically to any cell type or any organ. That's really something for the future, yes. I mean, but there is ways, as you also, the great podcast with Matthew, he's an expert in LNPs, which could be one method to go for to make it cell type specific.
Exactly,
not for targeting cancer cells, but for specific cell types in the brain, for example. Then we are at therapy again, reprogramming astrocytes. So you would like to target them specifically to become neurons, for example, for cell replacement therapy.
Okay.
This is the main challenge.
And it's really the challenge, but it's also exciting if it works later on, if you have tweaked the way how it's going to be delivered, maybe also very specific, that we learn much more and can improve more gene therapies and make it more accessible for everyone. And Yeah, I would like to wrap up this part now and would like to come to the more casual part that is a bit easier for us. So
why do you think it's easier?
because
we are scientists. So
I wrote down scientific and medical misinformation on social media. Our take on it. I think this is just like broadcasting, having our. Or what was the bro podcast or whatever from Felix and Coach Steph, you know. It's just rumbling around. Yeah, so that was like the wrap up of your amazing study that you did. It's your first author paper. Maybe we have a second paper with you as a first author paper soon.
Doubt it, but yeah, let's see. Fingers crossed.
I doubt it. You know that meme? I doubt it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we come to the next topic, which I already teased, is I have written down some potential topics we would like to know and address. So one is the science of obesity and weight loss, backing up everything with science, fact versus feelings, how to find good and credible sources for good information, what makes a good science communicator, or if you have any good topics. Exactly. So what do you want to talk about?
I'm open for everything.
Maybe we start with the first one. We are not going into the science in that sense, so I'm not citing any paper or whatever. It's more like the information that people get with science of obesity and weight loss. So as you said in your introductory part, you're very specific and very keen to tell the people that weight loss is not that easy and simple, and you have these kind of scientific hacks or whatever, or some even scientists give people very weird kind of protocols. Don't want to mention someone. So what is your take when you see on social media, when you open your feed and so on? How is science maybe misused in these two terms when it comes to obesity and weight loss?
I don't even really know if it's misused. I think it's just not used at all in this topic. It's just about some fast tips and fast hacks people want to hear, which are not even backed up by science.
No.
I don't even know if people on this topic try to back it up by science. You know, this is just because
I think they try, but miss the whole issue of taking other parts into consideration, I guess.
Yeah, and also I think because they don't even know that there's some real science behind it. I mean, I also didn't know until recently, honestly, that it's really a whole field, which maybe is also driven by the new medications that now are rising. You know, that's why people get more aware of it. But I think why it's not discussed in scientific terms is because it doesn't help. Because science would tell you it's not easy to lose weight. It's just some biology, which is kind of a combination of genetics and dysregulation of the brain and the environment. So there's no reason to back it up with science, because it would be about facts, not about some hacks, and it wouldn't be easy. So that's my take on the communication of this.
Do you have a specific example? You don't need to call out anyone, but I mean a specific example where you say, here it has been said, this is the statement, and actually science says something different. Do you have an example maybe? Or
yeah, I mean the main topics are fasting, for example. You get some I don't know, magic effects about weight loss, or autophagy, yes, exactly.
I always argue with autophagy is something that is happening in the cells all the time. Like I'm not sure, maybe I'm completely out of the topic, I have no idea, but usually to tell the cell that it should go now into autophagy, and that helps somehow clean up waste inside the body, it does not feel really correct. I don't know why, but I don't see that the body is like, oh, now I need to turn on autophagy because now I need a detox. Like, it does not work.
That's what people love to hear. They think
but then
like,
they don't understand how the body works, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Or would you tell your body now, please detox now at 11 a.m. in the morning?
No, of course not. I think it's just what the body does anyway all the time. It's not an on and off switch. It's not that you just like, okay, now I didn't eat for 8 hours, let's turn on autophagy. It's not how it works.
Yeah, exactly. And when you look at these autophagy studies, I wonder if they just chose this elevated gene expression of certain autophagy genes because they know it's hot shit. Yeah. Because sometimes, and in science it's a bit of a problem, certain topics are a bit right now more hot or more cool to investigate rather than the boring basic stuff. And then of course if you find autophagy, then of course you write it in your title because it's so cool, but in the end you might have neglected other pathways that were in the same way treated or in the same way altered. So I was just wondering if these people who do these intermittent fasting studies, if they just looked at autophagy because it's cool and hot and neglected all the other pathways. I had no idea. Now I'm just, saying that because I don't have the time to go through the data. But I was wondering if other pathways would be also involved, right? So it's always this complex mechanism that is coming, and it's not one or the other, right? Or do you have anything that is always sticking with you with weight loss? Is there something else that you would say, oh, that's kind of, I want to bring this out, that this is not true?
Yeah, about the boosters, fat loss, supplements, boosters, whatever. When
then
people claim that you
tell me about it, because I have no idea.
That you just have to eat dark chocolate and then you get a boost in fat oxidation of 30% or something. And then
okay. I never heard of this. So
and then it's just, there's people even citing papers, and then you look at it and then you see, okay, they measure some fat oxidation even in humans, but it's for 15 minutes after you consume it when you have an empty stomach, and it goes down like after 15 minutes again. And what's the point, This is in the end, even if you burn 15 calories more or something, this doesn't make any sense. And people think, okay, now I eat dark chocolate or whatever, and then I lose weight. It's just, I don't know, doesn't help anyone.
And for some reason, do the people make advertisement for a specific chocolate company?
No, in this case, I don't think so. No.
Okay, so that is not the case. What I also see on social media is nowadays people start to back up everything with science. How do you feel about this?
I think there should be something like almost like a driver's license, just for citing papers online.
True, right?
It's not in the end, but it's tricky.
Even the shittiest, unfortunately, there are not always amazing studies out there. Yeah. It is like it is, right? Some of them, are not really strong in evidence, but they're still peer-reviewed for some reason, and they are out there. And people who are not trained in science have the problem to actually see that it's actually not good quality research. So what do you think we scientists do better in giving the people the necessary, let's say, critical thinking to see that this maybe is not okay?
It's a $1 million question, I think. How can you give people critical thinking? I think you can't. That's also kind of the topic of how to decide for reliable resources, where you get the knowledge and the stuff from. I think we as a scientists, we are almost lost. I have no solution at this point, especially because nowadays the danger I see is AI and these tools, because let's call them idiots. Even if now, when idiots can use these tools, you can just get papers which back up your claims immediately, right?
Yeah.
You just ask for the papers, you just cherry pick.
Yeah.
And you even get peer-reviewed papers. Then you have a paper in the background of your reel and whatever. Yeah. But it's not about. It's, I think, for
not
the people, not about even about the critical assessment of the paper on its own, but just to have the whole, or to get an overview of the whole field of science.
Yeah.
Which is even tricky for us.
Yes.
Or for scientists in general.
Definitely.
If it's not from your field. This is super tricky.
It's super tricky. And I do use, of course, AI in my work, because why wouldn't you, if it's taking your workload a bit more?
Yeah, of course.
You have it easier.
I think you have to use it, otherwise you're lost.
I was doing some research lately, and I was asking for some references. And I saw that different AI platforms have different ways of getting their resources. And ChatGPT was so bad, for whatever reason, I don't know why. So I went to Perplexity and told Perplexity to check for the resources that ChatGPT gave me. And for some reason, ChatGPT just made up again some resources that actually didn't say anything that I wanted to have. And if someone who is not trained takes now these references and be like, here, I have the references and this is all backed up by science. No, it's not.
Yeah.
And
did you also ask ChatGPT again to check for its own mistakes?
Yes, I did, and it was still not good.
It depends on which version you have. Honestly, I think
I have no idea. Maybe on that way,
such an improvement.
On that day, I think they had some updates.
Yeah, maybe. But even if not, I think in some years, in 2-3 years, and it will be perfect.
We scientists, I had this discussion on this one congress I went now on conference on Tuesday. Some universities are super strict. So they tell people, their PhD, postdocs and so on, not to use AI. And if you're using AI, you should not use it with your data. Now me, as someone who is dumb, cannot code, need R scripts to get beautiful plots. I don't really care, because in the end, ChatGPT or co cannot really do something out of my data because they don't know the context. I'm not telling the AI my whole experimental description. I'm not doing that. I'm just sharing some parts of my data so I can make a script and know how to make like a heat map or something like this. But they are not even allowed to do that. And that's a bit tricky, I would say.
Why?
They have the fear of storing the data, because it's an open cloud and you're uploading confidential data actually to this cloud, which no one knows what is happening there. Yeah. Who has the ownership of this data in the end? So that's why they say you're not allowed to use it. But I think helping you with maybe analyzing your data is sometimes a bit, you need this, right? Because nowadays I feel like everyone has to become even a bioinformatician at some point.
Yeah, this is again, you can decide if you want to invent 2 or 3 weeks to know how to write the script and everything, or you can just ask the AI to do it.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's what the future is. I don't think that as a wet lab scientist, how do you do it? It's impossible. It's just impossible.
Exactly. And analyzing your data is, of course, one way to do it. And in my case, I'm doing mass spec data. It's already complex enough and not very easy. But I do feel like having the discussion with the bioinformatician is very helpful because you never know what ChatGPT or any other AI is telling you, which maybe statistic analysis is good for you and your data, because you need to have a human looking at your data and an expert who can tell you, maybe that's not normal distributed, maybe you should take another test, etc., etc. This an AI cannot really do in that sense, because every data set is kind of unique. Maybe at some point you can apply a certain script to it, but of course you always have to take into consideration what was the experimental design.
Yeah, sure, it does know the context.
Yeah, and I think that is where we should be a bit careful, because of course we don't know how ChatGPT and co is behaving with our data. I'm completely agreeing with that, but completely closing the door for the PhDs and postdocs in specific institutions and so on, because you are afraid of the data being stored somewhere is a bit over the top, I guess. If you're very, if you want to have this confidentiality, I cannot talk anymore, then it makes sense not to do it, but then what's the point of science if you're overprotective of your data?
Yeah. I think the same way. I mean, again, I mean, it depends.
Yeah.
There's nothing the AI would do with it, right? It's always some people or some institutions behind it which might use the data or misuse the data at some point. But then in the end, what would they do?
Yeah.
And would it be even more harmful if you don't use it? You don't process the data as fast, you don't get as much data, you lose track, and then you don't publish anymore. You know, this is the thing.
That's the problem.
The regulation has to come from above and not from if there should be some regulation, not from the single.
Then we had
groups.
another thing is fact over feelings, or feelings over facts, or facts versus feelings, right? So usually how people do it online is that they come with a story and tell people, and that was very prominent in the in this one video where Dr. Mike faced 20 anti-vaccine people. They all came with a narrative of their own story, telling, and this was like the justification why science is not working. And I would like to know from your side, how far have you seen that feelings matter more than facts in the work that you're doing?
What do you mean
on social media? Do you get like, not hate messages, but little backlashes or nasty comments that say, when you talk about obesity or weight loss, that people then start to attack you and be like,
yeah, they wouldn't call it attacking, but of course they are not in line with what you explain or what you show. I mean, of course, people are driven by feelings, and if they see, I mean, if you see something which doesn't back up with your own feelings, you also wonder, okay, is it true? Is it wrong?
But how much of feelings do we need to deliver facts? Maybe also in that sense. So
in the end, I think you don't need any feelings, right? Facts don't depend on feelings. I mean, should not.
Yeah.
Or
exactly.
do you, in a scientific paper, do you write about feelings or
yes, I felt this experiment.
When I did this experiment, I was so amazed. So
maybe we should have like this one column saying emotional feelings, and then I felt during my whole project that it was not so good.
The feeling decreased, over the positive feeling decreased significantly until the end.
Yes, exactly. No, but what I mean is, usually when you, so one of the problems that we have on social media is that usually people stick to their feelings and don't look at the facts, or try to deny the fact, or talk the fact small. Let's say it like that.
Yeah.
And I would like to know from you what you think could be done better to get this again in the other position, that we trust more the facts again and not too much the emotions or the feelings, or get into the trap of that.
Yeah, $2 billion question. I don't know. Depends on to which people you talk to, right? I think there's some bubbles or some people you will not solve this issue. You can deliver.
Do you have maybe an example where you say there's more feelings than facts?
I think it's in general.
In general.
I don't think I don't see any change towards the better at the moment with any communication, with any delivery of facts or something. I think it's just, I don't know. Maybe I'm too pessimistic at the moment, but I think we just
that's a general problem for you.
Yeah,
that you're very pessimistic.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe I'm just realistic. I don't know.
Yeah, could also be. Yeah. But maybe the next part that could help the people, how to find a good and credible source for good information. We had this talk that we maybe want to give in this podcast episode, little guidelines or little hints how someone can easily determine if someone is talking not the honest science here. And maybe if you have some points that you would like to tell the people to what look for if someone is talking about a topic and you have the feeling, this might be not okay.
Yeah, I mean...
What kind of guidelines would you... For instance, I'm someone who's watching your content. I'm not a scientist. What kind of guidelines would you give me in my hands so I don't fall into the trap of, I don't know, some weird person?
I would first look at the bio. What is this person? Which background does the person have?
Okay, what kind of background where you would say that's shady?
Yeah.
Yeah,
is the person qualified to make a statement about the topic?
Okay, so for instance, you're talking about nutrition. Does he or she have PhD in nutrition?
On which level? Which claims does the person make?
Okay.
On which level does the person talk about it? I mean, anybody can talk about nutrition, right? If it's about sharing recipes or it's about, I don't know. But if it's about, okay, you shouldn't eat X, Y, Z because it kills you, then it's a different level. It's just a completely different topic then.
Okay. The problem is sometimes they are credible people who have a medical degree, for instance, or do have even a master or a PhD in nutritional science or whatever, and still they talk shit. What would be the next level that you would say, okay, you have to check this?
Then I check the general content of the person. Is it biased or does it always have the same message? And if so, it doesn't mean that it's a red flag, but then what is the message? Is it... Yeah. Okay,
so with message you mean does he or she wants the people to buy a certain supplement or...
Yeah, or it's just like carbs kill you, carbs are bad or something, or keto will solve every problems, or
so they direct the people in a certain topic, in a certain direction to follow, and in the worst case scenario they have their own a little shop where you can buy all these kind of supplements and whatever, and energized water and all that. Okay, so you would check that. So let's say this person doesn't have a shop and supplement that it's now want to bring to the people to get money. What would be the next level of fact checking for you?
I also forgot about that point, but I think it's kind of a good idea, like the term follow the money. It's always good to look at how this person earns money, basically.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's one point. I mean, I don't know.
No, I just, to give the people a bit of the guidance, what they can look for. So they don't fall into the trap of someone who's, giving snake oil or something like that. And maybe from my side, what I would suggest for the people is in general being a bit more critical with the person, and maybe watch the content over time. So don't follow the person right away. Maybe just follow the account for a bit longer and see what does this person also has as a story. What do they put into stories? Because sometimes they put all the supplements into story because the story is only there for 24 hours.
Yeah.
And then you already get a sense of does he or she only wants to put put out their supplements, put out their maybe even training or whatever they want to sell. Exactly. And maybe what do you think can people do to get good information as well? So I don't think Googling would be the best idea because entering Google might overflood people with information.
Yeah.
What would be another thing that would be good to have?
I would say the slowest and slower information resources.
Mm-hmm.
For most, like even institutions, even if some people claim, okay, I mean, even institutions are biased and they talk bullshit, they want to kill you, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, I think they are more reliable than the random social media post or reel or whatever, especially for, I mean, if it comes to information to apply to your own life, then you can still trust resources which are 10 or 20 years old, because these things don't change as much.
Yeah. And
that's
of course we have
on
the
the other hand,
guidelines,
for social media, I think there's I have no solution, because as you say,
I would have one thing.
Yeah, which one? Share it.
No.
No, I mean, even
turn off social media.
Exactly. That's the point. In the end, the noise is so much bigger than the signal.
Yeah.
The fiction and the stories, they outcompete facts 100 times.
And maybe to make now the shameless self-promo here, of course, your channel is Honest Science, my channel is Honest Science.
Yeah, the boring honest science.
It's the boring honest
the
science.
Boring basics.
The boring basics. Maybe we come to the last. What makes a good science communicator? What would you think makes a good science communicator? Of course, there's not one fits for all, but what kind of
being
qualities?
Passionate about the things you share. I think the passion and the motivation is the biggest or the most important.
Maybe
attribute. Humor, and of course, don't put any misinformation out there.
Exactly.
As always, the general thing, being as simple as possible without being wrong or something.
Exactly.
This saying, I mean, but this is also. Yeah. I don't even think if it's good,
What?
I don't know. Maybe we should also go a step back and not be, or not try to oversimplify stuff.
Mm-hmm. A bit of complexity should be still remain. Yeah. This is exactly what I think is also really important, and that I learned in the last conference in December, when the keynote speaker said we should fact check, but we also should allow to have a bit more complicated topics delivered to the people and allow them to think about the topic a bit more, and not having a silver plate, everything is in bite sizes and you give it to them and that's it. Maybe it's good that someone has the opportunity to deal with the topic a bit more and has to chew on it so it gets better digested. Maybe if you get, in a very simple term, as a baby you get all these kind of baby how do you call it, baby brei,
small portions, I don't know.
Yeah, the one that is munched together, that doesn't have any consistency anymore, that you just feed in, right? I think that is not really staying a lot in your brain, rather than really you have something to chew on and figuring out, also with the complexity, for instance, in your case with the CRISPR, there were so many other things around that could have also an influence. But of course, you cannot address everything, right? At some point, you have to stop the study. Otherwise, you will do your research for 20 years, to answer every question that comes along the way.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to, in the limitation at least of the study, to tell the people, that's our limitation. But now we have a tool that we can expand now. And now we can go on in further studies and figure out what might be true or what might be not working. So I think that's also important for the people to realize that in science, it's not always everything is straightforward, right? As you said, with this one branch thing, with the hypothesis. Yes, people have the hypothesis, but then in the end they come up with something different. And then, of course, you need to write a story that makes sense. Yeah. And of course, at some point you stand there and be like, yeah, we knew this already, and that's why we had the story already lined up. But in the end, as you said,
it's much more complex, and that's the danger also. If you deliver it too simplified, then people think they understand it, and that's the problem, because then you miss out delivering the complexity, because in the end every topic is complex.
Totally agree. I totally agree. Just want to talk. Do you have any topic that you would like to add in addition?
Not that I would know.
No.
At the moment, no.
So we touched everything that you would like to talk about, misinformation on social media and the different kind of people. We touched on how someone can find a good source and check on the how this is possible, that you find credible sources online, so on Instagram and so on, that you check what's the credibility of the person, what kind of content they are doing, maybe how they are paid, by whom they are paid, maybe. Do they sell some weird supplements or any other really weird gimmick? And I'm not talking about giving people like donations or so that they can continue with their work. I'm not talking about this, but in general, that people want you to shop on their shopping page and then you pay $350 for a weird kind of cream or whatever, I don't know. Okay, so we are coming to a close end of our episode, and I want to wrap up with you. And usually at the end of my podcast episode, I give to my guest the opportunity to speak to the audience and address maybe a common misconception or even a misinformation that you have encountered over the time you're doing it. So right now the audience is yours. Would you like to address something?
You mean a basic misconception?
Basic misconception that we have not touched now. Or if you just have something else, you can...
Boy, it's so tricky. I have no idea.
Oh, come on. There must be something. Or maybe a message you want to give the people.
Message. Autophagy will not save your life. No, no. I don't know.
Ferroptosis is now the next shit.
Ferroptosis is the next one, yeah.
No,
longevity, epigenetic clocks, there's so much stuff.
Yeah, true, we did not touch this.
we did not talk about longevity at all. Maybe that's the one. I would say at the moment, even if people
What's your feeling about the longevity stuff?
There's nothing which show any promises, which is not, again, the basics which we know since 20, 30 years, or even longer.
Did you saw the documentation they did on ProSieben?
No. With whom?
Yankee experiment?
No.
They did this longevity stuff.
Maybe I watch it.
5 months. They were just continuing. So it was not really based on an average person basis. So it's not really a daily life someone would have. So they really for 5 months concentrated on eating, on doing exercise, cold plunges, and all these kind of, the basic stuff. And of course they could improve their biological age, whatever, how they're gonna measure that. It's something for me like still triggering, because I'm thinking like, okay, how do you measure biological age?
Oh, we could talk another 2 hours about that.
Right.
Only about that.
It's so complicated, and people still, they're like, okay, we have already the test, just do it. And funny enough, they in another experiment, I guess, not in that thing, but in another, or was it? I'm not sure, but it was also in some other experiment, not in this show. They tested the biological age with 2 different tests. And guess what? It was different.
Yeah, there's also, if you want to look at it, there's a great YouTube video from Matt Kaeberlein on YouTube.
Okay.
He did 4 different aging tests, commercially available, with 2 replicates for each of them. It was just a mess. It's just a mess.
Really?
Yeah, it's a mess.
Okay.
You cannot trust them.
Yeah.
And also, one more thing to this Yankee experiments. I mean, all of this is just an N of 1 without any control group, right?
Exactly.
You can, I mean, of course you see an improvement or any change in any direction because it's just.
So I don't want to,
there's no control.
it's good to have these self-experiments. I think it's quite interesting. Of course, as you said, it's N equals 1. But the problem that I see is, especially when they start to talk about the topics, you suddenly have people who are longevity experts, people who do longevity medicine. And I'm like, guys, we are in our infancies to understand aging. How the F are you an expert in longevity? I don't get it. Like, how? Am I now an expert because I know what's the proteomic clock or what?
Yeah, because you know what a mitochondria is. You know, this is, I mean,
exactly,
powers of the cell, you know.
Yeah, but no, but I mean, I think many people who really have grants and so on and work on a professional level to really figure out how aging works, what a good healthy aging means, and longevity unfortunately become a buzzword as well. And I think that this kind of exploiting of a very young field can potentially be very harmful, because just imagine all these people who sell you now these weird longevity protocols and whatever, like Brian Johnson is doing with his on YouTube.
But he doesn't even sell you something. I mean, not directly. He sells products, of course.
He sells products, exactly, but he's not, at least in my view, I don't see it that he tells like, I want you to become like this. It's more like, look at me, what I do, and we back it up with science. But he's also N equals 1, right?
Yeah, of course.
And
I think he's even honest. I mean, I will not defend him, but he's even honest, saying like 90% you get by the basic stuff. Eat your fruits, eat your blueberries and whatever, your broccoli.
He's very rigid with his, he goes at 8, I think, to bed and sleeps and has a specific time and whatever. We are not going into that. But the problem is that I see very often also portrayed by the normal media and also on social media is longevity is the next shit. You should do it. And that's the way how you do it. And science knows everything about it, which is not true.
Yeah.
So, and you should take the supplement. You should, I don't know, do this, cold plunges, whatever. And I have a big problem with that, because the scientists who are really working in this field, maybe in 5 years, if someone tells I'm working in the field of longevity, it might be, how can I say, it might be the worst thing to say, that you're working in the field of longevity, because you're getting stamped, right? Even though you're truly doing honest science, you're trying to figure out what is happening, why is the mice getting old. And I think the problem that we anyway have is with animal models. We cannot use in that sense the animal models. We have to go into the humans and we have to do the trials there. But it's
you will not do it. You will not do a longevity trial in a human.
Yes, it's super difficult to do that. Already the people who are in the nutritional sciences, right? How do they conduct their research? It's nuts. It's like they ask people if they can join for, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks to join a program that they can do some study on.
Yeah.
Right?
Some studies, yeah. Or just
you know what I mean? And there's a huge problem to solve, because all the animal models that we have, how do you translate this to human? So, and then of course you start to find these markers, and then you're like, okay, let's find them in human, and then you don't find them, or they're different, and it's so messy. But now already these clinics come up, And because Lorena told me that I think in Hong Kong, which offer you like for 200 to 400 euros to get your longevity things checked up and your clock and everything. And I'm like, we are not even there. We are not understanding the fundamentals and biology of it. And how can this be that is now coming up?
Yeah, I can totally see it. Why? Because it sounds nice, and if people have a lot of money, and in the end, there's nothing you can disprove, right? How would you disprove? How can you?
Yeah, exactly.
If you have
because
it on paper, you have slower aging.
Exactly,
how
we don't
can
have
a person be like, oh no, I aged faster?
Yeah, genau.
You cannot prove that you aged faster. How? I mean,
exactly, and
it's a gold mine.
It's so frustrating.
And
sometimes.
who doesn't want to add some years to his life? Everybody wants to.
Do you really want to become 200?
I mean, if I can still work out and lift 200 kilos.
Okay. Yeah, good.
No,
but I don't think so.
Even to the science, one point to add, even people really working as scientists in the aging field, they don't even find a conclusion what aging is. Or, for example, if aging is a disease. There was also a recent paper where they asked, like, I think 100 experts on the field. There's no conclusion. There's so mixed feelings. They don't even know what aging really is.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You know, that's
and
why,
then,
as you said, it's a super young field. We are at the beginning. We have no idea.
Yeah, and then how does someone from now our audience would see what is true or not? Maybe that helps the guys now to realize, okay, everything that has to do with longevity, I should take with a grain of salt. Maybe that is a good message to
everything that has to do with longevity. You should not take at all. You should just quit and I don't know, skip the video.
Skip the video.
Honestly, there's nothing.
Well, Lorena and I plan to do some
it's
stuff
always
on
about
it.
the same. It's always about get your nutrition, get enough sleep, avoid stress, and I don't know, meet people you like. That's it. That's the thing.
Yeah. The social component seems to be also important.
And you have to buy our supplements, right? Which we have in the description.
Yeah, we have in the description. You have your supplements, I have my supplements. Okay, so we reached our end of the conversation with Tobias Schmidt. Thank you again, Tobias, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Maybe we have another episode with you about longevity.
Maybe we can do it. Testing our own aging clocks.
Exactly. So, of course, if you got interested in Tobias' work, please make sure to follow him on YouTube and on Instagram. The links are always usually in the description box. And I would kindly tell to you guys, if you enjoyed the conversation, then please make sure to like and subscribe for even more great episodes with future scientists and medical professionals. And Tobias, I have a slogan, and you said that slogan once with me in one of the videos. Would you like to say the slogan again?
Of course, if we practice once.
Do you need it?
Yes.
I sent you the script, by the way, on your phone.
So we say it together, right?
Yeah. Should we start?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Let a little dose of honest science in your life and brighten up your day.
Okay.
Okay, guys, we see us in the next episode, and thank you very much for your time, Tobias.
Thank you so much. It was a great pleasure.
Daily dose of honest science.